Okay, so take off your shoes.
Okay.
Okay. And put your feet on the ground. Okay.
Yep.
So the idea of this exercise is for grounding.
Okay.
Okay. So we don't realize that most of the time, almost every day, we are like literally with our feet in some kind of like leather or some kind of plastic or running shoes or whatever.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So put your feet on the ground.
Okay.
And this would be like, okay, we're going to do a video in Ian, aka Wanderbeard, and I'm Malonie Carre. We're going to do a video together. And just before we do the video, I want to just ground our energy. Okay, so we put our feet in the ground with our shoes off.
Yep.
And just close your eyes for a second.
Okay.
Take a deep breath. Exhale, relax your body. Take another deep breath. Exhale. Just drop your mind into your heart center. Just feel the energy of your mind dropping into your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And take another deep breath. And just connect with the earth and connect with the universe. Just feel how that feminine energy of the earth and the masculine energy of the universe just connect in your heart. So now we will make our video. And let's just see how it goes. I want to know you can tell me after how you feel.
I mean, I've used a similar technique at night when I'm trying to fall asleep sometimes. Just take those deep breaths and just kind of squeeze everything and then release. And it seems to kind of help. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so that little tip for making videos.
We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes.
Let's try it.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I'm Malonie Carre, and this is Ian Wanderbeard. Ian, aka Wanderbeard.
Hello.
Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about our life journey we're both from 50 to 51 this year. So we have a few more months still as 51.
Yep.
But it's coming like 51 years old.
Coming very quickly.
The transition in our lives. And I want to ask Ian some questions about his journey because I know in his life he did a huge change from a tech job with a lot of stress, almost to the point where it could have almost killed you. Very close.
Yep.
So tell us about that, Ian. What happened? What happened to you?
So I worked in IT for 25 years, as you mentioned. A lot of high stress work over the years, and the last job I was in sort of became even kind of a combination of factors. So there was working from home because of the pandemic. There was having a very small technical team with a lot of responsibilities. And so what ended up happening over time is that even when a company doesn't necessarily say, hey, we need you to do this, it's more of a suggestion of, it'd be really nice if you do this for us. Mm-hmm. And so that sort of compounds over time. And you start to think, yeah, I kind of am responsible for those types of things also, I guess. And so it just builds and builds and builds to a point where you can start to have physical reactions, emotional reactions. It starts to affect the work that you're doing. So it kind of eats away at many different parts of your, day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it just came to a point where, I wasn't feeling very healthy, mentally, physically, all of that. And I just had sort of decided that I needed to do something different, although I wasn't sure what it was yet, but I knew that I needed to do something different. And so I kind of came up with this plan that, I wanted to get out of doing what I was doing and go see the world. I was always a big fan of travel, right? And so for me, it was sort of a moment where I kind of went, aha, you've got that idea that you want to run with. So then you start working on the plans for it. You start making a list of all the things you need to do. And then the next thing you know, you're necessarily off to the races in some ways.
So I have a question. As you were talking, a question came up in my mind, and I thought, so what is it when you're spending your energy doing a job and you have to do this work and your boss is telling you that you have to do this and that, okay?
Yep.
What happens energetically when you have to spend so much time of your energy doing a job. And what you would say your passion, like what is Ian Wanderbeard's passion? The thing that's you're most passionate about, because when you do what you're passionate about, you don't have that tiredness, that energy sucking like thing.
Yep.
If you're doing a job, you're good with tech stuff. I could see that when you're setting up the microphones. He's like very good with tech. He's very lucky. A YouTuber with tech skills. But when you're doing it for your passion, it doesn't make you tired. If you have to do a job and that job is just for someone else to make money, for someone else's dream, somehow it's this like life-sucking, like if it's too many hours and you don't say like there's some limits and boundaries, I'll work my 8-hour day, right? Like but even working, like why would you even want to work an 8-hour day doing something that doesn't like, so what turns Ian on? I want to know what makes you feel like, oh my god, like this is so passionate, I'm so passionate about this.
Well, like I always liked IT stuff. I always liked working with computers, and you know that job, that career kind of grew out of that interest. But over time, you sort of get to a point where the balance starts to shift. And so it goes from a passion, something you're interested in, to a work or a career that's starting to overtake all of your extra time as well. So I was working in a situation where, you know, officially you work an 8-hour day. But in reality, for myself and for a lot of other people in IT and other technical, you know, careers, 8 hours quickly becomes 10 hours, which quickly becomes 12 hours, which when you're working from home, suddenly you have this very difficult separation of work-life balance. And that starts to erode very quickly and you don't even notice it. And so what ends up happening is that your work life ends up completely taking over everything, right? So you're sitting at home at 9 o'clock at night and all you're doing is thinking about work, which is, you know, somebody else is making money off my back and I'm the one that's sitting at home stressing about it.
I think that has a lot to do with it because, for example, here in Hokhmah in the hotel, this place we've been creating for 20 years, but it's interesting when you said that about being home in the place. We live here. And this is my passion. And I can kind of go 24/7. I can almost be here from like 12 hours a day. 7 days a week. I don't realize, and I don't think I've had a day off, but because I'm doing it for my life mission, I'm doing it for what I'm passionate about. I love to create in the jungle. I love to be in nature. I love to share that with people. I don't feel, it doesn't drain me. So I think
that's a lucky position to be in, I would say.
That was my goal my whole life. Even since I was a little child, I was like, I love to sing and I wanted to sing. So that was like my first so what would you say is Ian's life mission passion? Because I think anything we do that we feel passionate about is our life mission. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to include service to humans. But sometimes like your service, for example, with your YouTube channel is very cool because you're helping people learn and see about different traveling options. So you're serving people with what you do, but you're doing what you love. What is that passion? Like, what is that thing what is it about it that you love? Is it moving around, seeing different places? Is that exciting to travel? Is it sharing the knowledge of the places? What is it that turns you on about that? Because you do this and you don't feel tired anymore.
So it's amazing how when I've been able to transition to this kind of new, I don't want to call it a career because it's not really a job. I mean, it doesn't feel like a job, you know? And I guess that's one of the things they always say is that when you are doing something you love, it's not really working, you know? For me, really, the passion about all this was getting out and seeing the world. It is going to these places that I had read about, going to places I had never heard of, going to places that other people had never even heard of, and checking them out, you know? And seeing the culture and learning the history and meeting the local people and trying local foods and like all of that kind of as a whole box of things together is why I enjoy doing it so much. When I started my YouTube channel, 2.5 years ago now, the idea behind it really was, for me, was as a documentation process. I was doing this entirely for myself. I didn't really care at that time if anybody else even watched it or not. For me, it was, this is something I want to do for myself. This is a way for my parents to see the world a little bit because they don't travel anymore. And so, you know, if it was an audience of 3, if it was me and my mom and my dad, that was good enough, you know. And so that was a big part of that for me, was just being able to go out and do my own thing at my own schedule and just explore, really. Like, I've always been an explorer, you know. And even before this trip, like I've traveled in the past. One of my favorite anecdotes is when I was in university and I was in a business technology co-op program. So the co-op program basically meant you had to take 1 semester and you had to go work for somebody to gain real world experience. And so everybody else in my course, the other 20 or so students that were in my course, everyone stayed local. So I'm from Canada, as you know, in Nova Scotia, and almost everybody else in the class stayed in Nova Scotia, very nearby. Most of them were within like 10 kilometers of where they lived. I went to South America.
Wow.
You know, I signed up with Care International. They had an internship program. I signed up with them. I went to Ottawa for 6 weeks, and then I went to Peru for 6 months and had an amazing time there. And that kind of ignited that interest from the beginning. And that was 25-ish years ago now. And that never really went away. But in the meantime, you get involved with working in the day-to-day life and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that sort of, again, kind of takes away from what you're passionate about. So this, for me, is sort of coming full circle back to what I enjoyed doing in the beginning.
Do you think you're serving humanity in a way where that lack of fear that you have of exploring, what is your opinion right now about travel in Mexico? Travel in, here we all laugh, travel in, I mean, we're here in the safest place, like we're in Puerto Morelos right now.
Yeah.
And we have like keys in the doors open. Like,
my door's not locked at the moment, I know
No, we don't have like any fear here. I feel safer here than I did even like growing up in Vancouver.
Yep.
It's a small town in Mexico. It's a small fishing town in Mexico, but where we are in the jungle, like, what can you tell people about the fear? And why do you think, also, like, 2 questions. 1.
Okay.
What about the fear? Can you serve people by helping them understand the fear about what's happening right now? With all the news, fear to go to Mexico, it's the this and that, fear to go to different places and the whole psychosis of traveling and the fear in the world. I'm curious about it because many people are afraid. And I think one of the services that you give, one of the things you do for people is help them understand that in places like Honduras, everywhere you went are places where Nicaragua is, that people feel very afraid. And even in Mexico right now with what happened with the cartel guy and everything, we had like literally like 8 cancellations that day of people who are so afraid. And I'm like, how can people be canceling when this is like on the other side of Mexico and everything is safe around here and there's no problem? And then like, do you think that has to do with your life mission, your travel mission? And what do you recommend people do? Like, what is your opinion about that?
So for me, I tend to travel without a lot of fear, which makes my parents really nervous. But for me, you know, the one thing that I've learned over this travel over the last, you know, I mean, I've basically spent the last almost 2 years now in either Mexico or Central America, right?
Yeah.
And so I've traveled all these countries now, in most cases twice, in most cases for a month or more at a time. And the one thing you learn is that day to day, people are trying to do the same thing everywhere. They're just trying to get by. They're just trying to make a living. They're just trying to, you know, feed their families and that kind of thing. So what ends up happening is you realize that a lot of these bigger issues that happen, or the things that show up in the news, really don't affect places or people at the end all that much. You know, they're usually very localized. They're usually a very short period of time that they happen. Like this most recent incident that happened in Puerto Vallarta was 2 days, right?
And it's so far away from here. It's like the other side of the world almost.
The way I would compare it, if you're watching from the US or Canada, the comparison I would say is like that would be as far as like you're being in Chicago and you're worried about something happening in Los Angeles, roughly, you know,
That's
in terms
not
of,
logical.
you know.
And then what's your opinion about, like, what's the motivation? What's happening? What's the manipulation behind that? Why is the news trying to manipulate people to be afraid to travel?
I think
Who's getting the benefit from that? Something's going on.
Well,
We got to think for ourselves here.
it's an interesting problem, and it's not something that's new because, you know, for years now, you always see in the news, oh, this place is whatever.
There's a big hurricane that's devastated.
Something has happened.
People that are living there, they're all fine. It's like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what happens is that, I mean, obviously shock and fear and all those types of things, that's what sells, right?
That's what sells news.
That's what sells news. That's what sells for companies. And so I think that there's an inherent reaction that when something negative happens, they immediately jump on it as, oh my God, this is, you know, a huge deal. This is affecting the whole country. This is, shouldn't go there, you know, red alert, the whole bit. When in reality, a lot of times that's not the case at all. In almost every case, that's not the case. Again, like going back to Mexico, like I've been here now, I've spent almost 9 months in Mexico, over 2 years. And of course, there's always things that come up in the news, but there's things that come up in the news everywhere, right? Yeah. Here, back home, you know, there's always stories that pop up in the news. So I think it's just an understanding that things that happen in other countries are not a macro level event. Yeah. At home, they're a micro level. Like you hear in the local news that something happened, the whole of the country isn't talking about it. It's the same thing here. But what happens is that the lack of knowledge about places or events or even geography causes an opposite reaction. And so people are like, oh my God, all of Mexico's on fire.
It's so
Something
dangerous.
Like
I also think part of the strategy behind the news, and I think this is where people have to become more intelligent and aware, is tourism is very huge money. Okay? Yes. So if we stop all the tourism from coming to this area in this moment, and so instead of coming here to this area of Cancun or whatever, tourists end up in Florida, Miami, whatever, there's a bit of a strategy happening where I think the powers that be like to move the tourism money around the world.
Sure.
And so I've even seen it within Mexico. I think we also have, like here, we have like TV Azteca. And I think some of those TV companies, they're owned by people that have some interest, for example, in Acapulco or in
right.
and other places where they have tourist situations. So whenever there's any kind of like a hurricane or anything in this area, those TV companies go, oh yeah, it's all devastated there.
Right.
Because obviously they're making a lot more money from people booking in Acapulco or other parts of Mexico.
Yep.
I saw that first, and then I started to realize also, I think even like Canada, the US, like there's like notifications that say like, don't retire in Mexico, it's dangerous for people like with pensions and stuff.
Yep.
But obviously it's a huge problem for the government, because if you're paying a pension out to people and they're taking that pension and they're going to spend it in another country where they can have a better quality of life with that amount of money,
yep.
then that money is being removed from the country, and then the government's not receiving the taxes, the GST, the IVA in Mexico, the whatever taxes. So there is other strategies happening. I think people, when they look at traveling and they look at the fear and they look, I think it's more like, okay, let's not get into like conspiracy theories about it, but let's be logical and realize that people could be manipulating a little bit the interests of the governments and the different cities in the world, because tourism is a huge business.
Yep.
So it's like anywhere. If you have some shoes that you're selling, and there's another guy down the block selling shoes, you're going to be telling people, oh, those shoes, they're not as good quality as my shoes.
Of course.
So at the end of the day, it has a lot to do with money. But I think if we could, like, I've been living in Mexico for 30 years. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. So I'm 51 now. So 30 years ago, I moved to Mexico. And I have always felt so safe here.
Yep.
So I think that's important. Now, your next journey, because let's move on from that, because that's a topic I'm passionate about. That why I'm like, it's so safe here. Why are they doing it? Anyway, let's move on to your journey.
Sure.
You're going to be going back to Nova Scotia, and
Yep.
you're going to be starting the second phase of Ian's passionate life.
Yep.
And so, knowing that you love exploring, and you want to help people explore, what is coming for you? How how can you modulate your passion? Like, let's talk to people about how they can modulate their passion into their current situation.
Yep.
Maybe you're going to stop traveling for a while, or you don't know what your plan is yet 100%, but you can still do a lot of things to use what you're passionate about and what turns you on, even if you still are stuck in your 9-to-5 job.
Yep.
You can
absolutely.
find ways to incorporate. Like, you might have been in the tech and you had to do from your boss, but you're going to make that transition. So what do you start incorporating into your life about exploring, about you can always find a way to do what you're passionate about, and then you'll have less energy sucked out of your life.
Well, one of the things I've told people a lot in some of the comments that I've had on my different videos is you don't have to reinvent your entire life all at once. If you're feeling like something isn't working, then try changing something small. Maybe, go to a new town you've never been to for a weekend, or even just a day, go to a park or a coffee shop or some place you've always like, I'd like to go check that place out someday, but you never do. Try it, and you can start small and build up, and you can turn it into, instead of a day trip, you can turn it into a weekend somewhere. And then the next time you go on a week trip somewhere a little bit farther away and see if you like that. And I think starting those little, we're sitting next to a fire, so that's the perfect example.
Yeah.
Starting those little embers can tend to build a bigger fire, right? And I think that that's one way for a lot of people who aren't necessarily ready to just kind of do what I did and sell everything and jump into the deep end. It's a great way to kind of pick those little pieces up as you go, almost like a trail of breadcrumbs. And over time, as you do that, it can make a very big positive influence on your life. And if you try something and you don't like it, well, then that's okay too, right? You've tried it, you didn't like it, so maybe we'll go this way and we'll pivot slightly and try something different. And I think that a lot of people get stuck into a situation where they figure, well, that's it for the rest of my life. I'm going to be doing this until I retire, or
That's
until
what kills people.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that people need to realize that it's okay to go do something different, to try something new, whatever it is. As crazy as it may sound to other people, that doesn't matter. It's your life, it's your decision, and just go and do it and see what happens.
So what's coming up for Wanderbeard?
Well, I don't know yet. I haven't decided. I've been on the road, as I said, in Central America and Mexico now for almost 2 years. I'm at this point going home for a little bit to take a little bit of a break, and I have to decide on my next plans. And I haven't decided which route to go on yet, so I'm not ready to kind of share that information just yet, at least publicly. But I do have some exciting ideas coming up, and in the meantime, I have a lot of other ideas with, reflecting on the last 2 years of my life and all the places I've been and all the things that I've learned. And there's so much more of that I want to be able to share with people. So I think I'm going to spend some time focusing on some of those things for now, and then come up with my next steps from there.
Your next master plan.
My next master plan, that's right.
Wow.
Because the next master plan will be probably
It's gonna
as
be
long.
big. It's going to be big.
Either one of them is, like, I have 2 plans right now. I have an A and a B, and they're both very long plans. They're both probably longer than even this plan has been so far, but they're in very different directions, we'll say. That's about as much of a hint as I'm willing to give.
Well, I think it's like anything. 20 years ago, we started building this hotel here.
Yep.
And what I literally do every single day, I wake up every single day and I say, what can I do today to create another stone on the path of what we want to do? And for example, right now we're looking to build a new big palapa for our iboga ceremonies that we're going to be starting to do here, which is very exciting. We're working with people to help them with addiction, PTSD, and some issues with veterans, and I'm very excited about that. But for example, how do we build this palapa? Every day we're going to wake up and we're just going to say, we don't know where we're going to get the money from to do it, how we're going to do it. Well, my husband Aurelio already saw the palapa, so we have the vision, because sometimes that's the first part. But if you have the vision and you don't know how to do it, so then, for example, I asked him yesterday, well, what can you do today? And he called some guys and they came to look at the wood that we're going to need and how we're going to move things. okay, we haven't done anything yet. We'll start to, oh, look, there's this tree fell down. Okay, well, we get some, like, we can take some boards from this. And then,
Yep.
and then like each day, you don't need to worry about how you're going to actually finish the whole project. Like 20 years later, we have 10 rooms. We have a beautiful palapa for dinners and events. We have a little area for Mayan massage therapy. So this week in our series with Ian, we might do a little cacao ceremony or maybe a Mayan massage. We'll see.
Who knows? We'll see. Yeah.
We'll see what plan. Definitely do some work in the sauna in our Temazcal, and but little by little, it's just every day you wake up and you say, okay, well, because sometimes you wake up and you're just like, oh, and like, no, ask yourself, what can I do today to become that much closer to my dream?
Why don't you tell us a bit more about what your ultimate dream is for Hokhmah, I guess?
Well, Hokhmah is...
Because this place is amazing, let me say.
Thank you.
I've been here now. This is my second time visiting here. I was here, I don't even know how...
2 years ago.
Year and a half ago, whatever it was. And the place is amazing. Malonie and her team here are fantastic. They've been doing some really cool work. This place is like no other place that I've seen. And so I'm really kind of curious to hear what your ideas are for the future.
Okay. I do have a very clear vision of exactly what
Perfect.
I want to do. From the first day that we found the land and we started to build the main house area, I sat outside and I saw the place finished in my mind. And basically for me, it was a place where I wanted to share the healing energy of nature with all of humanity. Oh my goodness. But I always said to the universe, I always said, show me what therapies, which methods work best, what are the best ways, combining ancestral healing with neuroscience, combining medical, scientific information with, herbs, and like trying to find, and I've always just said, like, guide me, show me. And right now, what seems to be coming are a little bit more work with iboga. It's very, very interesting for us to see, to integrate iboga as well with some of I have a certification as a medical intuitive. So I work to help people with their energy, with their health. But we also work with doctors, and we also work with plant medicines, and we work with diet and health. We were talking a little about that earlier too.
Yep.
We can do meals here, anything from vegan, vegetarian, carnivore. Been there, done it all, eaten all the different ways, learned a lot what intuitively works with each person's body. I think the best diet is the intuitive diet. It's like you need to learn to know your own body. It's not the same for everybody. But working as a medical intuitive also helps me to be able to help others get in touch with what they need for their life mission, their energy, the balance. Like we did that little thing to balance masculine and feminine energy. The interesting thing about the plant medicine with iboga is that it's the energy of the masculine and feminine. It's one of the few medicines that carries that balanced energy. So when it's healing properties for people with really severe psychological trauma, severe physical head trauma, issues with addiction, things that are just not able to release and get out of that.
And you've had some success with those types of programs here already, right?
Yes, it's been really inspiring. We have a mural on our wall from a man who we dearly love from Australia, who had been using heroin for 40 years, and it's been so beautiful. His all of his journey that he had. Our mentor for iboga right now, we're working with Michael Cassidy, and he's an internationally reclaimed expert in this medicine. And we've been watching how he works with his clients, and the work that we're doing with him is really inspiring. Sometimes something that could take you many months or many years to help someone to heal, they can be getting a huge advancement within just a week or two and a few sessions before and after for the integration. it's amazing to see the way. So I'm always just opening, like, if this is what's coming and the universe is showing this. My husband Aurelio did the ceremonies, and now he's going to be building. He saw the palapa and his mind, so we're going to be doing that. I think also, you know, just what's coming up, whatever it is. I always just say, do with me as you will. Do with me as you will. Today, Wanderbeard is here, and we're talking with you about and I hope that your future life journey also, what you decide to do in Nova Scotia also has, I see, maybe you here with us doing some work with some things that might help you prepare maybe for what's coming. Potentially.
Yeah.
Let's leave a little
leave it at that.
Mystery.
Can't give it all away.
They can't give it all away in
That's
just
right.
one video.
Yep. But yeah, I think that, you know, like for me personally, at least, like it's been an amazing couple of years. I think that my goal going forward from here, I think really is to kind of show people and continue to show people that places are okay. People are okay. Everything's going to be okay, you know, that you can travel. We were talking earlier about Mexico, you know. My family, my brother and his family were actually just down in Mexico for a vacation for their first time. They had never been here before. And it was perfect timing because it's just after everything had happened, Puerto Vallarta, and they were still like, no, we're good. We're going to come and, you know, hang out and have a good time. And everyone had a wonderful time, you know. So I think that is one of the biggest things that I can show people is that, you know, don't be afraid to go somewhere just because of what you've maybe read in the news, you know. One of my favorite examples, and I'll keep it brief, but when I was before I went to Honduras, I actually had a little bit of back and forth on whether I was going to go, where was I going to go, trying to plan out my trip through the country, you know. And there are some places in Honduras that are notoriously famous for having high levels of crime in the past. But one of the things that I learned while there, for example, was that San Pedro Sula, which was the most violent, most dangerous city in the world for about a decade, 12 years, something like that, now ranks lower in terms of risk than like 30 different cities in the US, right? And it was number 1 in the world, and now it's like 200 and some. But the mentality that people still have about the place is that, oh, I can't go there, it's too dangerous, you know? And I went there and I walked all around the town and shot video with my camera all day and met lots of really lovely people. So I think that is one thing that I'm hoping that I will continue to show people is that it's okay. The world is going to be just fine. Go out and see it, especially while you can.
Well, Aurelio and I have a little bit of a dream to maybe go to Africa to see
amazing.
the tribe with Iboga and everything. So maybe you can help us plan.
Sure.
I mean, thinking of going to Africa, that honestly for me that kind of freaks me out. I think that's like, where would we go? What would we do? That sounds very scary. I've also heard like it's like so much money. I don't even know where Africa is on the map. Honestly, my geography, because I work with energy, so I've never been able to even visualize the geography in my mind. I think when I was a little girl, my mom still laughs at me because I used to tell her that the U.S. was on top of Canada. And she laughs, but I think I was a little girl. I think I was thinking of Alaska.
Oh, probably.
So I was like, Mom,
still counts.
Mom, the U.S. is on top of Canada.
That's right.
But she's like, she doesn't remember geography. I was never good at geography. But maybe if we're going to plan that, maybe there'll be an exploring venture in Africa.
Yeah, I mean, Africa looks amazing.
Maybe we'll invite you.
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. Like I've always, it's been a place that's been on my list of places. I mean, my list of places I want to go is extensive.
It's huge.
But Africa has always been on that list.
Well, maybe you might need to go to Africa to prepare yourself.
Who knows?
He's like, don't let it out. Don't let it out. It's a secret. It's a secret.
But I would say that if you're looking to plan something like that, it's the same advice I give to everybody else. Just start with a list. Just start writing down bullet points and start putting where, you know, what countries do I want to visit? What do I want to see when I'm there? Who do I want to meet? You know, okay, well, let's say I want to go to these countries. Okay, well, then where in those countries do I want to go? And then you just kind of continue to filter down a list until you figure it out, you know, and it becomes almost self-replicating in some ways, because once you start the list and you want to continue working on it and like, okay, what's next? You know, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden you've got your whole plan laid out just like that.
Well, thank you so much, Ian.
Oh, thank you. It's a real honor for me to be here. Like, I love this place. It's such a cool spot that you've got going here. And yeah, all the best to you in the future.
Well, see how we go this week and all the stuff that we
That's
get
right.
to do. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Take care.
Thanks.
It felt long. I think we did good, didn't we? We left a little curiosity there.
Oh yeah, you have to leave a little bit on the hook, right?
Yeah, yeah.